You ever feel like you're quietly coming undone, and yet no one notices? Not even you at first. There's no crisis, no heartbreak, no obvious collapse, just a slow, invisible drift away from the person you once recognized in the mirror. Days blur, conversations feel hollow, joy becomes a distant concept you can remember, but not quite access. You wake up feeling heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the sheer weight of pretending. Pretending to care, pretending to be fine, pretending to know who you are and what you're doing, when deep down, there's a whisper that says you've outgrown something, maybe everything. You show up, you smile, you move through your life like a ghost with muscle memory, but something inside is shaking loose, something you've held together for too long with willpower and silence. And you begin to wonder, am I losing control? Am I falling apart? But what if that unraveling isn't your failure, but your becoming? What if the disorientation is not a breakdown, but a homecoming? What if you're not collapsing, but shedding a skin that was never really yours? Because maybe, just maybe, you're not falling apart, you're finally falling back into yourself.
We're taught to fear the feeling of falling apart. We're told it means something has gone terribly wrong, that we've failed to cope, failed to maintain, failed to keep it all together. Society glorifies control, neatness, progress, linear growth. We're praised when we look composed, when we keep smiling, when we stay productive, even while quietly drowning. But what if falling apart isn't the problem? What if the real harm comes from forcing yourself to hold it together long after the structure no longer serves you? You've been conditioned to believe that stability equals safety, that predictability means success, that if you're disoriented, lost, or uncertain, you must be doing life wrong. But what if disorientation is part of the path? What if confusion is not a detour, but a threshold? No one talks about how heavy it is to carry a self that no longer fits. No one teaches us that outgrowing who we used to be feels like grief, like losing a language you once spoke fluently, like standing in front of a mirror that no longer reflects you back. And so we panic, we grip harder, we try to fix what isn't broken, but simply evolving. But here's a quiet truth. You don't always break because you're weak. Sometimes you break because your soul is expanding, and the shell can no longer hold it. What if the unraveling isn't failure, but permission? Permission to finally stop pretending. Permission to return.
Imagine this, a house you once lived in. You knew its every creak, every corner, the way sunlight poured through the kitchen window in the late afternoon, the specific sound of the front door shutting. It was home until one day, it wasn't. You return years later, and everything feels smaller. The ceilings seem lower, the walls closer. The furniture no longer fits who you are. The house hasn't changed, you have. That's what it feels like to outgrow a version of yourself. The falling apart is not the house collapsing. It's you realizing you can't live there anymore. There's a moment when something inside you, quietly, firmly, refuses to shrink any further. A moment when wearing the same emotional armor, reciting the same scripts, pursuing the same validations, feels suffocating. And that moment doesn't arrive like a lightning bolt. It arrives subtly, through disinterest, through restlessness, through fatigue that isn't physical. You start forgetting how to perform, how to be who you were. You become clumsy in your old skin. Your smile no longer convinces. Your routines lose meaning. And deep within, something ancient stirs, not chaos, but memory. A memory of who you were before the world told you who to be. That's what's breaking. Not your mind, not your life, but the scaffolding that was never truly you. The roles you learned to play, the masks you wore so well, the stories you inherited without question. You thought you were breaking down, but maybe, just maybe, you're breaking open. Like a seed pressed beneath the weight of soil, splitting not because it's dying, but because something is about to grow. There's a sacred violence in transformation, a necessary disorientation in rebirth. Caterpillars dissolve completely inside the cocoon before becoming something that can fly. Nothing beautiful emerges without first becoming unrecognizable, and that includes you. You are not malfunctioning, you are reassembling. You are shedding the false and being reintroduced to the real. And no, it doesn't feel graceful. It feels like disconnection, like silence, like losing touch with things that once defined you. But that's not the end. It's the clearing. Think of this season not as collapse, but as compost. The falling away of all that no longer nourishes. The crumbling of illusions that once felt like safety. Because underneath the debris, there's a deeper self waiting. One that is quieter, but truer. One that remembers. One that never needed fixing, only space. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about coming back to someone ancient, someone original, someone you were always meant to be before the world layered its noise upon your skin. You're not lost. You're being excavated. You're not falling apart. You're falling back into yourself. There's a shift that happens. Not all at once, but gradually, like morning light slipping through the cracks of a dark room. It begins when you stop asking, "How do I get back to who I was?" and start whispering, "Who am I becoming?" That's when the energy changes. The panic softens. The group loosens. The need to understand everything fades into a quiet willingness to just feel, to breathe, to stay. You begin to realize that maybe you don't need to rebuild the old structure. Maybe you were never meant to. Maybe what you're experiencing isn't a fall from grace, but an invitation into truth. And in that truth, something extraordinary happens. You stop measuring yourself by the standards that once imprisoned you. You stop trying to squeeze your soul into timelines, roles, and expectations that never truly belonged to you. You begin to trust the unraveling, not as an ending, but as an intelligent undoing. Suddenly, you're not trying to be okay anymore. You're simply present. Present to the ache. Present to the silence. Present to the small, steady pulse of something awakening beneath the mess. You start to see that letting go isn't a weakness, it's a skill, a strength. It takes courage to release what once defined you. It takes faith to believe that what's meant to remain will rise again, unforced, unpolished, real. And that part of you that's emerging now, it's softer, but stronger. It no longer performs, it simply lives. You no longer chase clarity like it's a prize you have to earn. Instead, you welcome mystery. You make peace with not knowing. And from not surrender, clarity arrives on its own, not loud, but certain. This is what falling back into yourself feels like. Not a dramatic transformation, not a sudden breakthrough, but a return to breath, to body, to stillness, to the space within you that's been waiting patiently for your attention. You're not being punished by this unraveling. You're being reintroduced to your essence. And now, you're starting to remember. Let this be the moment you stop calling yourself broken. Let this be the breath where you choose softness over shame, curiosity over panic, presence over performance. You were never meant to hold it all together. You were meant to feel, to change, to dissolve, to reform, to grow beyond the scaffolding that once held you safe, but now holds you back. You are not a ruin.
You are a resurrection. You are not crumbling. You are becoming clear. And even if no one else understands what you're going through right now, even if it feels like you're walking through fog without a map, trust this. There's intelligence in your unraveling. There's grace in your disorientation. There's a blueprint hidden in the undoing. So if you feel like you're falling, fall. But fall inward. Fall through the layers of noise, of expectation, of who you were supposed to be. Fall gently, back into yourself. Because maybe you're not falling apart. Maybe you're finally coming home. Say it softly, just for yourself. I'm not broken. I'm remembering.